Question: why are people so afraid to question their beliefs? Does it mean giving up an identity that they have become attached to? If so, do these spirits who feed off these separate selves have such a strong foothold on the psyches of these people that they are so blinded by what is a blatant expression of the duality consciousness? I'm referring to people in general, but religious people, Christians and Muslims specifically, religious zealots. Well, I would say, why limit that to religious zealots? There are many kinds of zealots, political zealots and this and that. So what I would say here is this, that yes, it is a sense of identity that people feel is threatened when they question their beliefs. Because if you look at us, as I've said before, we human beings, we are psychological beings. And that means that we have certain psychological needs that are actually more deeply ingrained in us than our physical needs. And one of the needs we have is we have to have some kind of stability that gives us a sense of security. It's like you can say that you have to have some firm ground to stand on, where you feel this you can rely on. And for most people, this firm ground is their beliefs, their belief system, what they believe about life. It can be religious beliefs, political beliefs, it can be scientific materialism, it can be whatever. But people have to have some firm ground to stand on. It's one of the most basic psychological needs, or psycho-spiritual needs. Because if you don't have that, you can't function psychologically, and many people who don't have it end up in a mental institution. So for most people on earth, this sense of identity, their firm ground, is based on their beliefs, their outer beliefs. And it can be religious beliefs, it can be political beliefs, it can be national identity, their sex, their sexuality. It can be all kinds of things. It can be their local football team being better than the other team. But people have certain beliefs that become part of their sense of identity, part of their firm ground that they're standing on. And if one of those beliefs is threatened, they can feel that their whole foundation in life is falling apart. And the more people are afraid of this, the more zealous they are, the more fanatical they are, the more threatened they feel. And that's why you see, and you see it in history, how many times people have actually been willing to kill other people in order to defend what is just a belief they have in their heads. I mean, the Crusades, Christian and Muslims killing each other, all because each group had a certain belief in their head. Christianity is the only true religion. Islam is the only true religion. Therefore, it's better for those in the other religion that we kill them, otherwise they'll go to hell. It's just an idea in their heads. And they were willing to kill tens of thousands, hundreds of thousands, and other people throughout history, millions of people, in order to defend their belief. And it's simply this, their sense of identity, their sense of who they are, is tied to these outer beliefs. And of course you can say this is completely contradictory, because what did I say? Our most basic human need is to have a sense of a firm foundation we stand on. And an outer belief is not the best foundation to stand on because it could be threatened. And as I've explained in my videos about non-duality, in the duality consciousness, which most people in the world are in, every belief you can come up with has an opposite that threatens it. So every belief is threatened. That's why one religious belief can be threatened by another religious belief, or it can be threatened by scientific materialism. And why scientific materialists feel they are threatened by people who are religious. You know, you look at history and you can see that any outer belief can be threatened by an opposite. So how is that the best foundation for life, for giving you a sense of security, a sense of stability, a sense of a foundation? And that's essentially why Jesus 2,000 years ago talked about the parable that one person built his house on sand. And when the storms came, it was knocked over. Another built it on rocky ground, and it endured. So what is the rocky ground that Jesus was talking about? Well, it is what I call the one mind or the Christ mind. And it's also, instead of letting your sense of identity be based on these outer beliefs, you're basing it on who you really are. And that's what you understand when you connect to the Christ mind, the one mind. Because now you understand that I am not this physical body. I am a being, a mind that inhabits the physical body. So when the body dies, I won't die. But more than that, I'm not actually the outer personality. I'm not my feelings, my thoughts. I'm not even my sense of identity. I'm not a white man with blonde hair and blue eyes who grew up in Denmark. I'm a spiritual being who is just inhabiting this body. But as a spiritual being, I'm not defined by the body. I'm not defined by my beliefs. I may have been brought up to accept certain beliefs, but I'm not defined by them. So what Jesus said, what the Buddha said, what all spiritual teachers have said basically is, don't base your sense of identity, your foundation in life, on outer things that can be threatened. This is what leads to suffering. Go within. The kingdom of God is within you, and find a firm foundation for your sense of identity. And then you are not threatened by these outer things. You look at the world over the last several hundred years, and one of the most significant developments is the emergence of democracies. And what is the democracy based on? Tolerance for those people who have a different opinion than yourself. In other words, in a democracy, people shouldn't go to war with each other because they have different political beliefs. They belong to this party or that party, or they voted for this president or that president. They shouldn't. If they really understand what democracy is about, then they should have that tolerance so they can respect each other's differences. But that requires that people have stopped identifying with their outer beliefs. And the fact that we have democracy shows that on a planetary scale, many people have stopped doing this. But you see, of course, there are countries that are dictatorships, and they are opposing, in some of them, democracy. But that's because people in those countries, the majority of them, not all of them, but the majority of them, are still identified based on the outer beliefs. If you see yourself as a Russian, and you have a certain sense of national identity based on these outer things, of what Russia is, a great country, an important country, this or that, then it's possible you can come to believe that your country is in opposition to the West, or that the West is opposing Russia and wants to destroy Russia. If you identify yourself as a Muslim, especially a fundamentalist Muslim, you can come to believe that the West is opposing you, and you are holding the future of the world in your hands by adhering to traditional values instead of the decadence of the West. It's possible that you can see that the tolerance, the increased tolerance of the democratic countries is a weakness, and that you need to hold on to traditional values. And this is why you see people in these countries, they become more and more fanatical. It's even possible that people in a democratic country can be so divided by this divisive mindset that they come to identify themselves as followers of a particular president. And they are even talking about a civil war. They are even talking about shooting their fellow Americans in order to defend this president and what he's doing, because he's also standing for traditional values which are being opposed by the development in the country. So this is again because people, it's part of their identity is their worship of this president. Literally, you can see some of these people. They are identified as supporters of this particular president, who is, by the way, going to be gone in 4 years. And who knows whether he can deliver on his promises, and how they're going to react if he can't. Are they going to be willing to say, well, maybe I shouldn't have based my sense of identity on a particular leader of society. Maybe I should find it within. That's the big question all around the world, because we are going through a period as in the world where those who are in the fanatical mindset, you can see it, they're feeling more and more threatened. And therefore they are acting out in more and more extreme ways. And the question just is, how extreme does it have to become before people see this is just too much? We can't do this anymore. It's ridiculous. We're hurting ourselves. And I really think that in the coming decade or so, fanaticism, people in the fanatical mindset, will really be severely challenged. And gradually, all of these bastions of fanaticism or intolerance are going to fall. They're going to become so extreme that it becomes ridiculous. And people can see how ridiculous it is. And then people are going to seek some kind of balance, because I have, in some of my ego discourses, I've talked about black and white thinking. And when people are afraid to question their beliefs, the more afraid they are, the more fanatical they become. And when you become fanatical, you go into this black and white thinking, where you think that the world can be not only explained in very simple terms, but also in black and white terms. In other words, there's a good force in the world that's being opposed by a bad force. And there are some people that are aligned with the bad force, and if we just kill all the people who are aligned with the bad force, we'll solve the world's problems. This is the essence of the fanatical mindset. You know, the Christians and the Muslims, each side seeking to kill each other. The Nazis seeking to kill the Jews or any other unwanted people. The Soviets seeking to kill anyone who resisted communism. Stalin himself seeking to kill anybody who opposed Stalin. Mao seeking to kill anybody who opposed him and his power. So you just see the extreme outcomes of this mindset, and I think we're going into a period where, in order for the world to move on from this, in order for the world to move to a higher level, billions of people have to come to see the limitations of this fanatical mindset that causes them to be unwilling to question their beliefs. And for some people, the only way they are going to see it is by these beliefs being acted out in such extreme ways that it finally becomes obvious to them how ridiculous it is. And who knows what that's going to lead to of chaos and conflict. But I see it as just a necessary phase that we have to go through before we go to a higher level where people are more willing to question their beliefs. And why is it incidentally important to question our beliefs? Well, go back, look back at the world. And I've said this before. Just ask yourself a simple question. Has the world made progress compared to the Stone Age? Would you rather go back and live in the Stone Age, where you lived in a cave or a mud hut and you had only stone tools, flint tools, and you had to go out there and kill animals in order to survive? Would you rather go back there or stay in our present time? And if the answer is you would rather go back, no problem. Find yourself some island somewhere and get yourself dropped off there and see if you survive. But if you would rather live in the modern world, why have we made the progress we made? Because people have been willing to question their beliefs about the world, about how things work. Why have we made progress in the last several hundred years? Because of science. Well, you know, if you know anything about history, that the Catholic Church in Europe opposed the early scientists and killed some of them because they questioned church doctrine. So how have we made the scientific progress? Because some people dared to question their religious beliefs. Are there any beliefs that don't need to be questioned? Well, no. You go back 1,000 years and see what people believed 1,000 years ago. All of the beliefs people had back then have been questioned in order for us to move into the modern age. You look back, go a few hundred years into the future, look back at our time, and I guarantee you that the world will have moved way beyond where we are now, and all of the beliefs we have right now have been questioned. Now, of course, you can't question all of your beliefs at once, because then you lose that sense of foundation that you need, that you have a firm ground to stand on. But all I'm trying to say is, progress is based on people questioning their beliefs. And eventually, all of the beliefs we have today that we think should never be questioned because they are the absolute truth, all of those beliefs will be questioned. And people will, I don't know about you, but when I was 10 years old, I learned in school that 500 years ago people believed the earth was flat. I thought, how could they believe in something so ridiculous? And I guarantee you that a few hundred years from now, people will look back at many of the beliefs we have today and say, how could they believe in this stuff? It's unbelievable that they could believe in this.